Good evening, everyone. I'm Shobu. I am part of our Comedy Works and I produced Bahubali. Thank you.
Ramesh Sippy. I have made, of course, Sholay. So, Bahubali today, Sholay yesterday. It's both are phenomenal hits. I shall pass you on to the rest of the panel.
Hi everyone, my name is Raj Kumar. I am the managing director of Rentrack. We are the box office measurement company, a global leader in that space. We are now Comscore. Rentrack merged with Comscore recently. And I also head the anti-piracy cell for the Telugu Film Chamber of Commerce in an honorary position. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Karan Aluwalia. I'm part of Yes Bank and look after the media entertainment banking group over there.
Okay, let me start with, sorry, some more mics. Can we have some more mics, please? All right. I know it's late in the evening, but we can do with more mics. Okay, let me start with Shobu and Ramesh. There's something interesting. When Ramesh made Sholay, it was the riskiest thing ever to do in the film business at that time. It was the most expensive film. And I think that he told me stories about how everybody said that his father was completely crazy. "Apne bete ke liye kuch kar raha hai," and the son had gone mad, and the father had gone mad, and they made a film called Sholay, which survives till today. And I'm sure the same thing happened with Bahubali. They spent more money than everybody dreamt of. I'm sure Yes Bank would have never financed it. And so...
They never came to us.
Would you have gone? 200 crores. He's sitting here. He'll give you 200 crores for the next film.
Bankers to some parts of...
Okay. So, and yet Bahubali became recovered at cost, right? And I just said that film business is dead, but I'm talking about two films that actually broke every rule. So question is, are we not breaking enough rules? Have we all become so quiet and say, "Ki chalo yaar, Salman Khan ko le lo, isko le lo, let's just make a movie"? Have we forgotten content as filmmakers? Have we stopped taking risks? Have we gone to sleep? Question for both of you. Or what did you guys do to break the rules? Why did you? What gave you the courage?
I think, yeah, we did break a lot of rules, especially the rules of economics of filmmaking. I think we believed in Rajamouli and his vision and believed that it will work pan-India. We believed that we make a right film and, and immaterial of what the budget recovery from Telugu film industry was. We could recover this cost. If it was a great film, we could recover this cost pan-India. It will appeal to a pan-Indian audience and we could, the film could travel across India. And I think we went with that belief. It was a major risk and I think it paid off. And I think that's where but there was a lot of, it was a lot of homework, a lot of groundwork done. There was more than a year and a half of pre-production, planning and a thought process that went into it to make that happen. It was not just betting on talent or top above the line talent or, it was more on the content and the people behind the content, driving the content.
But did you wake up every morning in a cold sweat?
Of course, especially before the release of part 1. I think everybody, like you were saying earlier, everybody did write me off. They said, and we were not funded by any studio. We were a small, primarily a small production house based out of Hyderabad, and we pulled together all the funds that were needed for it. And so, of course, everybody did say, I mean, they thought, everybody in the Telugu industry thought we were crazy. So we did have many sleepless nights, definitely.
And everybody thought your dad and you were crazy when you made Sholay?
Oh, there are so many stories about Sholay that it's... Sholay, I was lucky that I had my father to back me. I didn't have to go to anybody. But the truth is, this industry always shouts the end of the world at the drop of a hat, I remember when Mr. Dilip Kumar took 1 lakh of rupees as his price, everybody said the industry will close down. Nobody can make movies after this. Just a couple of years later, Mr. Sahir Ludhianvi, the lyricist, said, I will take 1 lakh rupees. All my songs are the best songs ever, so I'm going to take 1 lakh, otherwise I'm not working. So again, there was what you would call the shakes that are happening even today, that how can this industry run? If a lyricist starts to take 1 lakh rupees, this industry can never survive. At the time of Sholay, to be honest, didn't have a budget. I mentally had something in my mind which I conveyed to my father. The last film we did was Sita Aur Geeta at about 40 lakhs, which turned out to be a very big hit also. And I said, to make an action film with all that, we'll probably need 1 crore rupees to make that film. Anyway, ended up costing 3 crores. I remember a lot of people doubting us and our sanity. But the truth is, I wasn't spending money, or rather wasting it, not knowing what we were doing. We had a damn good script. We got a good set of artists, and it's not like I went for every star. The star cast of Sita Aur Geeta was repeated. Plus, we needed 2, 3 other main characters. That's how Jayaji and Amitabh, who was, at that time, Amitabh ji had about 7 to 8 flops to his credit when we signed him. But by the time we got into production and release, he had a couple of hits. It became an asset. But at the time that I signed him, the reason I didn't want was I didn't want too many big stars in the film, because I wanted to make a damn good film. It cost a hell of a lot of money. But everything went into the making of the film.
Okay.
What I'm trying to say is the actual cost of the star cast of the film was 20 lakhs as compared to the 3 crores. Today, you're getting a film made for 150 crores, but 100 crores goes to one actor. So there's something lopsided about the kind of movie making that's going on at this stage. We're blaming people, but are we doing our business right?
Okay. Karan, I'll come to you in a moment. I have a much more specific question from you. It's coming and you'll be frightened. Karan, why are you putting money in films? You're a banker. I mean, would you have financed any of, after hearing what Ramesh had just said? No, let's be honest. Is filmmaking a business?
I think, let's just, at that time, I wasn't around, so I don't know. But even yes, no, so I was just coming to that, exactly. So, okay, so now I think after the film industry, if maybe 12 years ago got the industry status, I think after that, a lot has been a little more structured in terms of corporates coming in to invest into movies. I'm not really saying everyone, I'm not talking about the full studio model here, but the producers. So at least the ones that have been a little more structured and more organized, and we've seen that. They keep coming up with consistent films of all sizes, of all budgets. So as wearing a banker's hat today, so wearing a Yes Bank hat, we saw this sector, this soft power sector as a sunrise sector. And we put together a team and we call it knowledge banking. And what we did is we funded films, corporates that funded films. So our thing was not ki hit hoga ya miss hoga. It was about the financial soundness and the way the cash flows were represented. So obviously it was the basic logic of seeing that the Reserve Bank of India banking policy that was given, which was pretty much like 50% of the volume of the, not volume, but the cost of the film can be funded by a bank, and you have to repay that money before you release, and you can get the negatives of the film as security. I think that model honestly really didn't go well with both the banks as well as the film companies. So then when, I'm talking about way back in 2006 or 5 or 6, when we kind of started with small relationships. I even remember it was smaller relationships like Pratish Nandi Communications, and then it was Yashraj or Dharma, and then today, touchwood, quite a few of some great corporates. We haven't come to you yet, but we'll talk on that. But I think Touchwood, from the way we've seen our credit and risk and recovery, it's been pretty steady, and we don't have any sour stories to tell, because we are, we're the debt guys, right? So we don't really come we're not back-ended, we're not front-ended, we're not taking a ride on how your movie really does. And I think that's the right job of a banker who doesn't really look at the creative side of the business, but he looks at the commerce balance that is there with the creative business to see where those visible cash flows are to service those loans. I hope I'm not talking a lot of jargon here, so please excuse me. But I think that's the way we calculate, and we have calculated all our debt or syndicated debt relationships. We've also arranged equity, but that's more private equity, but that's not for a film specific. Those are, again, corporates. So some who've gone for IPO or stuff like that.
Can I just add in a line?
I hope that answers the question.
So just on the terms of banking, when we were doing the first part, there was no bank that ever funded us. I mean, they wanted 200% collateral. And
Just so everybody, Bahubali cost you how much?
the first part was about 200 crores.
And the second part?
Is another 200 crores.
And how much did you recover?
For the first part recovered itself, and the second part will recover twice the.
Tell me the truth. How much did the first part recover?
The first part, yeah, about what came to me.
No, what's the number?
It did 600 gross.
There it is. And it recovered 600. So 600 gross in India, and how much of that was outside India?
Outside India was about 500 crores, and 100 crores was from outside India. Gross. 100 crores. 100
Okay.
crores gross from outside India, 500 from within India.
In the number. So the number of theaters didn't restrict you?
Yes. Yeah.
Didn't?
No. But what I would say is, if you look at the numbers, I think the number of people who would have seen Bahubali, it being one of the biggest hits, is about 50 million tickets sold in India, to compare to a population of a billion plus. So I think that's a very small portion of the people who have actually seen.
So would you say 10 times more people saw Bahubali than actually tickets sold?
Absolutely.
Piracy. All right, it's down to you. Let me ask you a question. I was having this conversation with a major star the other day, and he was complaining about piracy. Yeah, Meri Sari, how many of you don't understand Hindi? One, you? Okay, from Mongolia. I can speak a little Mongolian. So, yeah, so I'll speak in English. So the point is, he said, yes, 75% of the viewership of Hindi cinema is pirated. In some form or the other, it's 75%. So in the movie business, we only get 25% of that money. So he was complaining about that. So here's what I said to him, and you tell me whether I'm right or wrong. I said, the problem is that 75% of people cannot afford to go to the theater. So they're not going to see it anyway. But why are you complaining? Because you're getting 10 crores, 15 crores for the commercials you're doing, and 100 crore deals that you're signing on television is happening because your films get pirated. So why do you care? If they didn't get pirated, they wouldn't see you, you wouldn't build a fan base, so you should be going to the temple of piracy and praying and thank God it exists. Right? Answer that.
Yeah. Thank you, Shekharji. To begin with, I am extremely privileged to be sharing this dais with stalwarts like Shekharji and Rameshji and my fellow Hyderabadi, Mr. Shobhu Yarlagadda, producer of the biggest success story, Bahubali, and of course Karan. So, in fact, I would like to talk about two things. Shekharji asked whether the film is dead. Sir, I'll slightly digress before I come to the piracy part. I think that sentiment will have a lot of resonance across the industry, but I am extremely hopeful. And it's ironical that Shekharji asked this question because three of the very, very strong examples of making great cinema is right here in Shekharji and all that. And when you make strong content, there is no way film can be dead, and we could conquer the world. So, having said that, I head Rentrack, which is the box office measurement company, and one of the serious problems which is plaguing India right now, the Indian industry, is that we really don't have data. Like when you asked Mr. Shobhu just now how much it had collected, he has no accurate numbers. Basically, down the lane, there is so much pilferage of revenues that is happening, and a lot of great cinema can be made if there is a robust mechanism which measures box office. And I mean, I had a chat with a lot of talent down south, and they all want to make good cinema, be part of innovation and all that. But they can't trust. There is an element of distrust among producers and talent that the money might not come back if we actually accept the back end. So if we have robust mechanisms to measure that they can depend on, better cinema can be made, and that is one point. The second point is, yes, piracy is definitely eating into the revenues majorly, and for the longest time, it's been almost like 4.5 decades since we've been actually talking about piracy and nothing really happened. But sitting here, I also represent the Telugu film industry, and I could tell you with confidence that if we adopt a very structured and scientific approach towards tackling piracy, it can be dealt with. It can be dealt with, it can be understood better, and also at the same time we need to, like Shekharji said, we need to get proper delivery mechanisms in place, because a lot of people, when they really want to see it, the delivery mechanisms are not available. So if we are able to provide them that, not everybody wants to pirate, or not everybody wants to watch movies without paying for them. So that's my view. Thank you.
It's highly unlikely that the number of theaters in India will go up. And, you know, China is building 15 screens every day, new screens every day. We are probably dropping 1 or 2 almost every day, right? So the number of theaters actually available to show films is going down. And in the context of the competition we're feeling from other, other sources, there was a time when you talked about Dilip Kumar, when he put his price up. The point was that people had no alternative entertainment. There was nothing else they could do. They could watch a film or nothing, and now they can watch television, they can go to the net, they can soon have virtual reality. So the question is, in very quick answers to both of you, because you both made big films, how do we increase revenues? How do we make this into a business rather than, yaar, maine bahut achhi film banai hai, chali nahi, or chali, or something? How do we make it into a business?
But Shekhar, in those days, there were other problems. But entertainment tax was 200% and 250%, and a lot of the revenue was hidden by the theaters themselves. You go to a cinema and you are told it's 70% full, when actually it was overfull, and there were people sitting in the aisles. But there was a legitimate reason for them for doing it, because 250% is a lot of money to give away for nothing. Yeah. Therefore, it happened then because of that. Today, the price is too high for the common man to go and watch the film. We, as the business side, has to find that mean which takes the film to audiences in the beginning at the right prices. There should be theaters with the high prices for those who want to enjoy it that way, and there should be theaters with lower prices but good facilities as well. So there are people who can, your driver and all your staff would like to see it also on the big screen. I'm sure today they're taking days off, doing things. There's no reason why they're not going to go and see it in the theater and enjoy it. They used to. They're not going now. They were very much in the theaters in those days. So, but we're not allowing them to do that. That the business is stopping it, and I think the business patterns must change.
Okay, I have a question, because in everything that I ever talk to anybody, there are two things people never talk about. Hollywood really expanded its business by going overseas, okay? It made inroads into Europe, into Australia, into Germany, into China. Till it went to China, everybody said it's because they speak English. In China, which is now becoming the world's second largest market, they don't speak English. It's all dubbed in Chinese. That's one question. What's wrong with the Indian film business? It's the largest film business in the world. It's one of the oldest film business in the world. The Chinese film business is very new. It's already doing better overseas than Indian films are. Indian films are only appealing to Indian diaspora. What is wrong with the Indian filmmaker, storyteller, that it cannot go out and conquer world markets in 50 years of its existence?
I don't think
And
it's
it used to. It used to.
I don't
mean,
think it's an entirely fair question,
it's a fair question.
but I'll tell you why. Because there is a huge government support out there. The private enterprise, of course, like here, is very much, they have talented makers and all that. I will never deny that. But who is building all these theaters? It's the government is backing those private companies to do that. We don't have that kind of a system in this country. I'm sorry. We do not. Otherwise, 30,000 theaters could not have come up so fast.
No, I'm not talking about theaters. I'm saying, why don't Indian filmmakers make a mark in international markets?
International markets, yes, some of our films have done well abroad.
Give me an example.
Lunchbox.
Lunchbox was financed, not financed here. Lunchbox was financed by a French company. I'm talking about, there is not a single, even Bandit Queen was not financed here. Or Monsoon Wedding was not financed here. Every time we talk about an Indian film making a mark abroad, you realize it's not financed in India. The question is coming to you.
No, actually, I wanted to say something when you were talking about the exhibition, and Mr. Sippy also said about how the cinema, we need more cinema screens in our country for, of course, with respect of, I mean, it's not just because of piracy, but I think we're an under-screen market. And I was hearing some clients, and there were some views of various state governments trying to find a subsidy scheme where they, so there are a lot of screens that are shut. So they want to incentivize business houses to come in, and they will provide 75% of the cost of refurbishing that screen. And this is, we're talking about really, tier 2, 3, 4 cities, and 25% will be put in by the business. So these are some ideas being discussed and mooted by certain state governments. And if that does happen, I think you will have people that will take serious interest to this, because the financing, perhaps, I mean, we haven't gone deep into it, but it was just some discussions we had of certain states wanting to do this. And also, if you realize, when the earlier multiplexes boom happened, I mean, if you look at the valuation of those multiplex companies today and where they are today, there's been a steep rise. So there is a good business model over there also. But I guess one has to study this further, where you correctly said, Mississippi, you were talking about how other countries like China and all have supported, where the government has supported screen penetration. So similarly, if such initiatives happen in India, I don't see that not happening, because people, in spite of the Netflixes and all the other experiences, like what was discussed, I think, in the first session, the experience of going to cinema is not going to die or extinguish. We need more screens.
So what you're saying is that unless the government helps, Indian filmmakers cannot make a mark overseas.
No. I'm not relating that
just
question.
said.
No. I'm not making that. I'm making a
but,
point to underscreen.
No. Shekhar's point is about
different.
overseas.
Yeah.
Our business is not entirely overseas. Let's be realistic. It's basically Indian film. And American films, by the way, make a lot of money in America. It's not like they're dependent entirely on the world market.
I accept. So
the kind of costs they have for
American
their
films also make a lot of money here. Jungle Book almost beat every Hindi film here.
Yes,
I
true.
will let me add to this. When we talk about films going abroad, first of all, I think we need to look at how can a Telugu film travel to North India, or a Tamil film travel to Telugu, for that matter. Leave out our films traveling abroad. Our films don't travel across the state. And I think that's got to do with a lot of the way we make films is very specific to India and very specific to our culture and the song and dance and the fights, and what people, the general masses, enjoy is different from the Western society has evolved to a different form of filming, I think. And our kind of filmmaking doesn't appeal, the majority of films don't appeal to an international audience. And I think there's more value in us trying to cross over our state borders and make a pan-Indian film in attempting to do that, where it's much more easier than trying to appeal to an international audience, where we lose that and this market.
Do you think there's a possibility that with the limited number of theaters, we probably will not be increasing the number of theaters, that Hollywood is coming with films like Jungle Book, and they'll monopolize our theaters, and we won't be able to, because our audiences love them, and we will lose our audiences to Hollywood?
Definitely there are like Jungle Book and the franchisee films and are already finding a huge traction within the regional and national audience. I think they will find a huge market that will grow. But I think, like Karan was saying, we are hugely under-screened. And unless the exhibition sector, the bottom-most rung, the beginning sector, finds it profitable. The multiplexes find it very profitable because they sell popcorn at 10 times the price, right? But the lower rung, at the BNC centers, in the rural sectors, the exhibition industry is not profitable. And unless that is made profitable, there's nobody going to invest in screens. And that's the primary, whatever government support comes, it's not going to happen. The screens are not going to increase. And that is because, especially in states like Andhra and Telangana and Tamil Nadu, which are the most passionate about films, which has the most passionate film audience, they spend 1,000 rupees or 2,000 rupees to buy a ticket on the first day. They don't mind. Or even there's case of 5,000 rupees, the ticket goes up to 5,000. Money is not an issue. But the thing is, the government restricts the pricing to about 50 rupees a ticket. And today, if a film like Bahubali, which we spent over 200 crores, has to be sold at 50 rupees, how many 50 rupees can make 200 crores? You know, that's the problem, where government control and also, as Raj was saying, lack of transparency. Because there's a government control on pricing, there's complete lack of transparency, because you're as just similar situation where you're selling at 500 rupees and keeping not undisclosed things, and that there's a whole story building up there.
So one of the problems that we've isolated right here, everybody agrees that the lack of number of theaters and exhibition potential in India is limited, so we can't get there. So I just going to ask one more thing.
Shekhar,
yeah.
एक और बात है, देखो. It's not just the foreign films. A lot of regional cinema today is eating into your business also. It's doing that because there are very good films coming out from the regional cinema. Today, if Sairat has done a business of 100 crores in Maharashtra alone, it's similar things are happening in other states. So, by avoiding Hollywood or going abroad, we're not going to solve the problem alone. I think that avenue should also open. We must go abroad. We must conquer the world as far as cinema is concerned. But we have to look at ourselves and see why in India we're not doing that kind of business also. Because there aren't. Now, if theaters are going to be occupied by the regional cinema and dubbed cinema of Hollywood, and what real space do you really get? Your cinema, your film is released within a week, it's all over. You don't just get any opportunity to take it beyond. The good film, that's the other side, we always know that. It takes a damn good film, and calling it a big magnum opus like Sholay or Bahubali is not about what we're talking about. Pink or Sairat does business, so good cinema also is going to work. So I don't think it can be a one way to go ahead. You have to fight on several fronts. We must have a lot of screens. All that, it can only mean business. And we also have to improve our cinema in different ways and appeal to those audiences that are seeing all these films.
You're doing, let's talk about the idea that when you create, because we're all talking about content creation, okay?
Absolutely.
Let's take cinema to the idea of content creation. Are we also, in films, are we ignoring the 360-degree aspect of filmmaking by saying, actually, Bahubali is a huge, it's a content that has created waves all over the country. I know that you are taking this into virtual reality. Because I've seen all your demos. But my question is that do we as filmmakers, do we need to start thinking of film as a 360-degree business and talk about it? I know we put it on television, and I know we put it in music, but can we break up the characters? Can we create web series out of them? Can we create, other content?
Yeah, you have to think of everything.
Yeah, we can, but we are not.
We're not doing it.
Yeah.
Completely. With 300 million smartphone users, I think you can't, whether there's enough cinemas or not, we can't ignore 300 million this thing. And there's a huge opportunity there where you make small films, shorter versions of it with the characters. And I think there is a huge, and we are not doing enough. And I think the 300 million smartphone users, which is growing at a very rapid pace, I think they are the biggest market of the future.
But can you talk a little bit about how you've planned Bahubali spin-offs? You can tell them, because I've heard it from you.
Okay, so we have the world of Bahubali, which is basically a fictional world created by us. So which defines the backstories and the entire history of the world of Mahishmati and the world of Bahubali. So of that, what we believe is the two films are just a glimpse into that world. And what we see is this possibility is we have an animation series coming on Amazon Prime. It's been commissioned on Amazon Prime. We have graphic novels. We have virtual reality things. And then we have a 3-book novel commissioned by a well-known author and to be published by a very big publishing house. And we are also looking at a live-action series for another major broadcasting series and a mobile game. Mobile game is my target for the 300 million people. So we are looking at a 360-degree approach and trying to create maybe one of the first tentpole franchises for India. That's our goal.
Karan, when you do your financial analysis, because you say you look at the numbers, does this ever occur to you? Let me see of the potential, a 360-degree potential of a film.
So I think what he just mentioned about how he's trying to go about it like a franchise, we've seen it in very few, maybe in the Indian films, right? Very like maybe Dhoom of Yash Raj and maybe a few others that have been successful in doing franchise. And what he correctly just mentioned is, so he's commissioning web series today because that's where the smartphone audience is. So with all these new formats where you commission it, there are already certain waterfall financial structures where they could take some advance from us. So these are like securitizations and stuff like that. So that's how structured finance actually can be worked with organizations like himself.
Rajkumar, we were talking about intellectual property.
Right.
And somebody came to me and talked about intellectual property, and I said, it's an outdated concept. In the new world of dissemination, you can disseminate in 5 days. Please give me intellectual property rights for 5 days. After that, you can have it. And we talked about this idea of, and so talk about intellectual property and film. What happens, not just in the context of piracy.
Right. No, like
who owns the intellectual property of a film?
Yeah.
Who owns it? Because it's written by somebody, directed by somebody, financed by somebody, distributed by somebody. Who in your heart, forget what the law is. The law is crazy, but because it doesn't comprehend. In the world of change, law can never catch up, because it just changes every day. In your belief system, who owns the intellectual property of film? For example, France, the director does.
right.
In America, probably the producer or the writer does. Who do you think owns it?
I would say the producer, because he's actually taking the maximum financial risk. But of course, it actually varies from case to case, because actually sometimes it's the author or the lyricist, basically, because he's actually bringing the literary value to this whole thing. But especially when we're talking about tentpole projects like Bahubali, so the IP obviously is very extremely valuable. So I mean, I think the production house, which is actually risking everything, with just a vision. So obviously they should own it.
So if I sat down to write a novel and somebody funded me to write that novel for a year, they should own the intellectual property of the novel?
I already, sorry, I already came up with a disclaimer saying right in the beginning that it actually varies. If it is the producer backing it, at least he should be.
What about Rajamouli, the director? Does he not have any value?
Should
he not be the IP? He happens to be the producer, is another thing, but if he was the director, then who gets it?
I'm extremely.
Can anybody else have made that film?
Can
anybody else have made that film?
No, I mean, it really requires a lot of courage and vision and confidence and conviction.
Therefore, it needs everybody.
Yeah.
And some of the key people, as Shekhar is pointing out, the director, the writer, the producer is a very important factor, putting money in and putting so much money at risk. But somewhere there is not fairness if only one part of this turns out to be the final person who makes all the money.
Right.
So that's Somewhere
in our case, I'll help Raj out. In our case, Rajamouli, the director, and us own the IP, and that is because Rajamouli did not take his remuneration, the normal remuneration, took a very nominal remuneration, and he had a whole
Quite high. His nominal remuneration.
So, he didn't take a pretty anything. He took a major what his market value demands. He didn't take that. He just took something very nominal, but his majority was coming from back end. And I think the back end was across IP and is across IP and an entire film and entire IP that we're developing, so exploiting. So it's owned by both Rajamouli and us.